In the quiet town of Bradford, Virginia, where church bells ring on Sunday mornings and the biggest argument is often over a parking spot, a murder has shaken the community to its core. Emily Turner, a 39-year-old devoted mother, beloved wife, and active church member, was found dead in her suburban home under suspicious circumstances. To her friends and family, Emily was the epitome of a good Christian woman, someone who would never stray from the path of righteousness. But Emily had a secret. What no one knew was that Emily had worked hard to hide her forbidden affair with Ahmed Khalid, a 42-year-old Muslim high school teacher. Their relationship was more than an innocent exchange of ideas. It was something far darker, more dangerous, and ultimately deadly. As investigators begin piecing together the events leading up to her murder, the truth about Emily's double life comes to light, revealing a complex and twisted story. Who really killed Emily Turner? And why? The Turners appeared to embody the ideal small-town family. Mark Turner was known in Bradford as a principled lawyer, trusted by clients and admired by peers for his commitment to justice and his integrity. He was deeply involved in the community, serving as a deacon in their local church, supporting charity events whenever possible. Emily, his wife, matched his commitment to the town, often organizing community events, hosting Sunday school for the children, and dedicating countless hours to volunteer work. The Turners' two children, a boy and a girl, were well-behaved, active in school activities, and a constant presence at their parents' sides during church services and family gatherings. But behind the scenes, life in the Turner household was more complicated than it appeared. Mark's busy legal career, while providing well for the family, meant he was often preoccupied, leaving early and returning late, his mind still full of case files and depositions. Over time, Emily felt more like his partner in logistics than his wife, handling the day-to-day responsibilities of the household largely on her own. Though their relationship was still respectful, the closeness they once shared had waned. Emily began to feel trapped in the routine, and as the years went by, she started questioning whether there was more to life than what she had. Emily's daily life began to feel hollow, and her once clear sense of purpose dimmed with each passing year. She began to reflect on her younger self, the Emily who had been curious and ambitious, with dreams of traveling the world and pursuing her own passions. Somewhere along the way, those dreams had become buried beneath the roles of wife and mother, her own desires sidelined to support Mark's career and their family. In her late 30s, she found herself at a personal crossroads. The duties that once brought her pride and satisfaction now felt more like obligations, and she couldn't help but wonder if she had been too quick to sacrifice her own dreams for the expectations of others. Although her love for her children was unwavering, her longing for something undefined grew stronger. She wasn't sure what she was searching for, but felt a profound need for a deeper connection, something that would allow her to rediscover the spark she had lost over the years. Ahmed Khalid entered Emily's life at a pivotal moment. A history teacher in his early 40s, Ahmed had left the fast-paced life of New York to settle in Bradford, hoping for peace and a sense of belonging. He was well-read, articulate, and driven by a passion to promote cultural understanding, which made him a respected, if somewhat enigmatic, figure in town. Unlike many people Emily knew, Ahmed approached life thoughtfully, spending his time mentoring students and engaging in community dialogues about tolerance and understanding. His quiet confidence and depth of knowledge intrigued her. Emily first noticed Ahmed during a lecture series on religious tolerance held at the community center. His insights and perspective sparked something in her, and she found herself drawn to attend more of his talks. Ahmed's approach to teaching was patient, open-minded, and respectful, and it resonated with her own desire for something beyond her everyday life. After one of his sessions, Emily introduced herself, and they fell easily into conversation. What started as an innocent curiosity grew over time as Emily began to attend more of his lectures and eventually stayed behind to talk with him after each one. At first, Emily and Ahmed's connection was purely intellectual. They would discuss historical events, literature, and philosophy, topics Emily seldom had the opportunity to explore with anyone else in her life. Ahmed's perspective was refreshing, He introduced her to viewpoints she'd never considered, and their conversations left her feeling challenged, intrigued, and intellectually alive in a way she hadn't experienced in years. As their discussions grew longer and deeper, the tone of their relationship began to shift. Emily found herself sharing personal details about her life, marriage, and even her frustrations and disappointments. She opened up about feeling unseen and unfulfilled, a woman who had once been full of dreams, but who now felt stifled by the roles she was expected to play. Ahmed, in turn, confided about his struggles with isolation, his difficulty in finding a place where he felt truly accepted, and his own insecurities. This mutual vulnerability drew them closer, creating a bond that went beyond simple friendship. Their shared confidences became more intimate, and they found themselves seeking each other's company, not just for intellectual exchange, but for comfort, companionship, and understanding. Each began to wonder if the other felt the same way, sensing an attraction that went unspoken, but was nonetheless deeply felt. This unacknowledged longing simmered beneath their interactions, a tension that grew harder to ignore with every meeting. The boundary between friendship and something more was eventually crossed, as they met one evening at a quiet cafe to talk away from prying eyes. The atmosphere was different, charged with anticipation and uncertainty, as though both knew this was more than a casual coffee. They laughed easily, sharing jokes and personal stories, and for the first time, Emily felt the intensity of Ahmed's gaze lingering on her. Their hands brushed across the table, and this small, accidental touch felt electrifying. One meeting led to another, each one more significant, more vulnerable than the last. They began spending more time together in secret, sharing fleeting glances, brushing hands, and laughing in ways that felt newly intoxicating. Finally, one evening, as they stood to part ways, they held each other's gaze longer than necessary, and Ahmed leaned in to kiss her. It was a tender, tentative moment that felt both thrilling and dangerous. In that kiss, the floodgates of their restrained emotions opened, and they both felt a mix of exhilaration and dread as they crossed a line that could not be undone. As Emily and Ahmed succumbed to their growing feelings, their affair intensified, transforming into a passionate relationship filled with secrecy and thrill. Each rendezvous felt like an exhilarating escape from reality, where they could temporarily forget their obligations and immerse themselves in each other's presence. Their meetings took place in secluded spots, quaint cafes on the outskirts of town, quiet parks with hidden benches, and even rented rooms where they could be free from prying eyes. Emily relished these stolen moments. They became the highlight of her life. Ahmed brought her a sense of freedom and excitement that had long been absent in her marriage. He appreciated her intellect, admired her aspirations, and listened intently to her dreams, providing validation that Emily desperately craved. In Ahmed, she found a partner who understood her frustrations, someone who encouraged her to pursue her passions and rekindled her spirit. However, the thrill of their secret meetings came with an ever-growing tension. The reality of their situation weighed heavily upon them both. Emily started to experience conflicting emotions, joy and guilt intertwined as she began to neglect her family. Missing school events, forgetting important dates, and lying about her whereabouts became commonplace. At home, the cracks in her marriage widened. Mark, unaware of the affair, sensed her distance, but attributed it to stress. Ahmed too felt the strain. The weight of secrecy was suffocating. He feared the repercussions of their relationship. Yet, each time they were together, the world outside faded away, leaving just the two of them, lost in a bubble of intimacy and passion. They would often discuss their dreams for the future, filled with fantasies of what life could be if they were free to love one another openly. But reality loomed, casting shadows on their dreams. As the affair deepened, both Emily and Ahmed grappled with their emotions, torn between their existing responsibilities and the allure of what they had found together. Their relationship began to teeter on a precipice, and it became increasingly clear that something had to give. As Emily's double life became harder to maintain, the weight of her affair with Ahmed and the deception toward her family grew overwhelming. She was caught between her love for Ahmed, which had given her a sense of purpose and happiness, and the responsibilities and bonds that tied her to her husband Mark and their children. She began to notice the emotional toll it was taking, not only on her, but also on her family, who were left confused and hurt by her increasing distance. Emily's mental state deteriorated as her feelings of guilt, shame, and confusion worsened. At home, she was an emotionally absent wife and mother. Mark sensed the shift, feeling her detachment more keenly, and he grew frustrated by her evasiveness. He tried to reach out to her, to understand the source of her unhappiness, but she deflected his concerns, hiding her internal struggle. In a moment of desperation, Emily attempted to redefine her relationship with Ahmed, seeking to escape with him and leave behind the life that felt like a prison. She fantasized about a fresh start, believing that a life with Ahmed could bring her the happiness and fulfillment she craved. One evening, she confronted Ahmed, pleading with him to run away with her and build a life together. But Ahmed, though he loved her, was shaken by the risks involved. He hesitated, explaining the devastating consequences such a decision could have for both their lives. For Emily, Ahmed's hesitation felt like a rejection, deepening her loneliness. She returned home that night, consumed by despair, feeling trapped in a life she could no longer tolerate. The following day, the strain finally reached its breaking point. Her mind spiraled into a dark place, and her life began to unravel completely. On March 3rd, tragedy struck. Emily was found dead in her living room, strangled in what appeared to be a horrific and violent end. Her death sent shockwaves through the community. The news devastated Mark, who discovered her lifeless body and was left haunted by the unanswered questions surrounding her death. Family, friends, and neighbors mourned Emily's loss, but many were also left grappling with confusion and disbelief. How could this tragedy have happened to someone who appeared to lead such a perfect life? As whispers spread throughout the town, rumors began to circulate about Emily's recent behavior, her erratic emotions, and the secrets she may have been hiding. The peaceful, picturesque image of her life began to shatter, leaving the community to wonder about the deeper forces that led to such a heartbreaking outcome. The investigation into Emily's death began immediately, with detectives working tirelessly to piece together her last moments and uncover any possible motives. Mark was questioned closely as detectives examined the nature of their marriage, looking for signs of domestic strife or hidden tensions. While Mark was devastated, his shock and grief were genuine, and he was eventually ruled out as a suspect. However, Emily's affair with Ahmed soon came to light, altering the direction of the investigation. Detectives discovered hidden messages, love letters, and secret emails that revealed the intensity of their relationship. They pieced together the story of their passionate connection, leading them to view Ahmed as a key suspect. Ahmed's reluctance to talk initially made him seem even more suspicious. Friends and colleagues who had once viewed him as a quiet intellectual began to question his role in Emily's life and death. Public scrutiny turned harshly upon Ahmed. The community was in shock as details of the affair were made public, and many saw him as the cause of the tragic outcome. The media descended upon the story, sensationalizing the details and casting him as the villain. The whispers grew louder, painting Ahmed as an outsider who had driven Emily to abandon her family and who might have had a role in her death. Ahmed found himself increasingly isolated, struggling to cope with the weight of guilt and the agony of his loss. As detectives dug deeper, however, they began to find evidence that pointed to another individual, Derek Whitman, a close friend of Mark's, and a colleague who had developed a secret obsession with Emily. Derek had harbored feelings for Emily for years, feelings that turned into an intense, unrequited love that festered beneath the surface. Friends of Derek described him as quiet and reserved, though those closest to him noticed a certain intensity in his demeanor, particularly when he spoke of Emily. His envy and anger had grown as he became aware of her affair with Ahmed, viewing it as a betrayal and a further distance between him and the woman he idolized. On March 3rd, tragedy struck. Emily was found dead in her living room, strangled in what appeared to be a horrific and violent end. Her death sent shockwaves through the community. The news devastated Mark, who discovered her lifeless body and was left haunted by the unanswered questions surrounding her death. Family, friends, and neighbors mourned Emily's loss, but many were also left grappling with confusion and disbelief. How could this tragedy have happened to someone who appeared to lead such a perfect life? As whispers spread throughout the town, rumors began to circulate about Emily's recent behavior, her erratic emotions, and the secrets she may have been hiding. The peaceful, picturesque image of her life began to shatter, leaving the community to wonder about the deeper forces that led to such a heartbreaking outcome. The investigation into Emily's death began immediately, with detectives working tirelessly to piece together her last moments and uncover any possible motives. Mark was questioned closely as detectives examined the nature of their marriage, looking for signs of domestic strife or hidden tensions. While Mark was devastated, his shock and grief were genuine, and he was eventually ruled out as a suspect. However, Emily's affair with Ahmed soon came to light, altering the direction of the investigation. Detectives discovered hidden messages, love letters, and secret emails that revealed the intensity of their relationship. They pieced together the story of their passionate connection, leading them to view Ahmed as a key suspect. Ahmed's reluctance to talk initially made him seem even more suspicious. Friends and colleagues who had once viewed him as a quiet intellectual began to question his role in Emily's life and death. Public scrutiny turned harshly upon Ahmed. The community was in shock as details of the affair were made public, and many saw him as the cause of the tragic outcome. The media descended upon the story, sensationalizing the details and casting him as the villain. The whispers grew louder, painting Ahmed as an outsider who had driven Emily to abandon her family and who might have had a role in her death. Ahmed found himself increasingly isolated, struggling to cope with the weight of guilt and the agony of his loss. As detectives dug deeper, however, they began to find evidence that pointed to another individual, Derek Whitman, a close friend of Mark's, and a colleague who had developed a secret obsession with Emily. Derek had harbored feelings for Emily for years, feelings that turned into an intense, unrequited love that festered beneath the surface. Friends of Derek described him as quiet and reserved, though those closest to him noticed a certain intensity in his demeanor, particularly when he spoke of Emily. His envy and anger had grown as he became aware of her affair with Ahmed, viewing it as a betrayal and a further distance between him and the woman he idolized. As more evidence surfaced, detectives uncovered a string of messages Derek had sent to Emily, expressing both his adoration and his frustration. These messages took a darker turn in the days leading up to her death. Surveillance footage from the night she was murdered placed Derek near her home, providing crucial evidence that implicated him in the crime. The anger and obsession that had built up within him led to an impulsive confrontation, and, in a tragic act of violence, he took her life. With this new information, Derek was arrested and charged with Emily's murder, bringing some measure of closure to the investigation. The trial that followed gripped the town, as details emerged of the obsession and jealousy that had driven him to such a violent act. The tragic end of Emily's life revealed the complex web of relationships, desires, and hidden lives that often lay just beneath the surface. The town mourned her loss, but her story also served as a cautionary tale of the dangers of secrecy, the pressure of societal expectations, and the tragic consequences of unfulfilled desires. Mark, struggling to come to terms with both his wife's hidden life and her violent death, chose to move away with their children, hoping to find peace away from the shadows of his past. Ahmed, too, left the town, haunted by the memory of his love for Emily and the tragic fate they could not escape. Emily's story lingered in the minds of those who knew her, a powerful reminder of how fragile life can be when suppressed emotions and forbidden desires spiral into an uncontrollable tragedy. Her life and untimely end left an indelible mark, teaching those around her about the complexities of love, loss, and the dangerous consequences of secrets that remain hidden for too long. After Derek Whitman's arrest and subsequent trial, Emily's story reverberated throughout her close-knit town, becoming a haunting reminder of the unseen struggles and fragile boundaries that define human relationships. The once idyllic community was forced to confront harsh truths about love, betrayal, and the lengths some will go to preserve the illusions of a perfect life. This was no longer a story whispered in corners or shielded by neighbors. It had become a profound and complex cautionary tale that left a lasting impact on everyone it touched. Mark, Emily's widower, found himself at the center of the aftermath, bearing the brunt of shock, betrayal, and sorrow in equal measure. The dual loss, first of his wife's loyalty, then her life, shattered his perception of the world. Once a man defined by his roles as a loving husband and father, Mark now had to navigate the murky waters of grief and forgiveness alone. For the sake of his children, he attempted to reclaim some semblance of normalcy, even though every aspect of his life reminded him of the woman he had lost and the secrets she had hidden. In an effort to provide his children with a stable environment, Mark made the difficult decision to move the family to a different town. This meant leaving behind the family home they had built together and the memories tied to it. Yet, starting anew became essential. The house, once a sanctuary, had become a painful monument to their unraveling lives. Mark dedicated himself to his children's well-being, channeling his anger, grief, and confusion into rebuilding their lives. Therapy sessions and support groups became his lifeline, helping him confront the pain of betrayal, the ache of loss, and the questions that would never be answered. Slowly, he began to make peace with his past, allowing himself to remember the good parts of his life with Emily, while accepting the harsh realities that ultimately led to her demise. Ahmed, who had shared a profound yet forbidden connection with Emily, struggled to make sense of the tragedy that had unfolded. The public exposure of their affair had tarnished his reputation, affecting both his personal and professional life. No longer able to avoid the judgments and suspicions that followed him, Ahmed sought distance from the reminders of Emily and the devastating outcome of their bond. He moved to a distant city where he could start over, free from the critical eyes of former colleagues and friends. Though he carried a deep sadness, Ahmed found solace in his writing. To honor his memories of Emily, he published a small collection of poetry inspired by their relationship, capturing the unspoken emotions, secret moments, and intellectual intensity they had shared. The book, while a quiet release, helped him process his grief, guilt, and the complexity of his connection to her. It allowed him to mourn not just for Emily, but for the love they could never openly acknowledge. His reflections became an outlet, a way to immortalize the impact Emily had on his life, while also serving as a reminder of the limits and consequences of desire. Emily's tragic story rippled through the town's fabric, altering the dynamics of social circles, friendships, and families. The community, once drawn to the Whitmans' picture-perfect family, was left with a collective sense of disillusionment. The sudden revelation of Emily's affair, combined with her shocking murder, upended everyone's assumptions about trust, fidelity, and the appearances they took for granted. People began to question their own relationships and the hidden burdens others might carry behind closed doors. The story prompted discussions that reverberated in book clubs, at church meetings, and in casual conversations, with Emily's story sparking heated debates about morality, forgiveness, and the struggles women face in balancing personal desires with societal expectations. For some, Emily became a tragic figure caught between conflicting forces. For others, she was a cautionary example of recklessness and selfishness. The emotional and moral complexity of her life ignited introspection across the town, with many quietly examining their own relationships, fears, and vulnerabilities in her wake. Emily's friends, some of whom had initially judged her harshly, began to see their relationships and friendships in a new light. Many felt compelled to address the unspoken rules and unshared emotions in their own lives, realizing that they too might be suppressing parts of themselves to conform to social expectations. Trust, once taken for granted, became a fragile commodity, as friends and partners found themselves questioning the authenticity of their own connections. Some relationships were strengthened, while others crumbled under the weight of newfound insecurities and realizations. The scandal, though painful, opened doors for more honest conversations and a greater sense of empathy. Many began reaching out to loved ones to share feelings and fears they had long buried. The legacy of Emily's story, rather than disappearing, transformed into a push for honesty and openness, encouraging the people in her community to break the silence around their own struggles. As the media coverage faded, it left a lasting impact, sparking larger debates about the pressures society places on individuals, especially women, to maintain perfect facades. Emily's life had, in many ways, reflected the intense societal expectations on women to balance career, marriage, motherhood, and personal fulfillment seamlessly. Her story reminded many of the perils of bottling up emotions, desires, and ambitions, and the toll it could take on one's mental health. The media's sensationalized portrayal of Emily's choices, her affair, her mental anguish, her untimely death, highlighted the dichotomy between private struggles and public perceptions, leaving readers to wrestle with their own judgments and biases. For some, her life became a case study on the effects of isolation and repression, while others used it as a sobering reminder of the importance of mental health resources and emotional support within communities. In the end, Emily's life and death became more than a scandalous tragedy. They served as a powerful reminder of the silent battles people often face, hidden beneath their outward personas. The tragedy brought an awareness of the consequences of neglecting emotional needs and the importance of authentic connections. As her story slowly faded from the headlines, its impact lingered, encouraging others to break free from social masks, seek deeper understanding in their relationships, and confront their own vulnerabilities. Though Emily was gone, her story continued to resonate as a cautionary tale, one that left a legacy rooted in the importance of compassion, empathy, and resilience. Those who had known her, whether directly or indirectly, were reminded that behind every seemingly perfect life lies a complex web of emotions, aspirations, and unspoken pain. Her story inspired a more compassionate, open-minded approach to relationships and a commitment to emotional honesty that the town would carry forward, forever shaped by her untold story.